So in the 80s, my favorite TV series was Miami Vice, naturally. Don Johnson was the coolest guy on TV, and the Ferrari Testarossa they used in the second series was my absolute ultimate. So about 6 years ago, I was lucky enough to actually own a Ferrari Testarossa. It was a 1990, which was not my favorite spec because it has the 5 stud wheels. And I was doing a little bit of research to try and find a part that was missing in the engine bay. It was a simple part, heat shield cover, and on this Google search, pops up on a Lamborghini kit car forum, what I thought was a kit car Testarossa. They'd cut the roof off it. It looked like a kit car. Ferrari only ever made one of one genuine Testarossa Spiders for a chap who owned Fiat called Gianni Agnelli. This one was not that car. There were a handful of other Testarossas in the 80s, in the 90s, that also cut the roof off by a company called Draman. Again, this was not one of those builds. This was a Testarossa that clearly someone one day had had a few beers and thought it would be a great idea to get the hacksaw out in their garage and chop the roof off this Ferrari. I look at it, and a little bit of a closer inspection, it appears to be actually a real car on this Lamborghini kit car forum. I don't know why it was on there. Anyway, it was a 3-year-old advert, and the price reflected kind of a 3-year-old price of a Testarossa. In those 3 years, prices of Testarossa had gone from about $30,000 to more like $100,000. Anyway, I thought, well, there was nothing on this thread to say that the car had been sold. So I contacted the seller, tried emailing him, and he never came back to me. Anyway, there was a phone number there. It was California car. I was in the UK. Lo and behold, he come back to me. Yeah, still got the car. It's still a project car. It's in the back of my garage. So I said, well, do you want to sell it? And he's like, well, yeah, why not? The price, I think at the time, he was asking about $25,000. I managed to negotiate it down, and we got the car, which turned out to be quite complete. And I managed to get it for $16,000 with all the import duties, all the shipping from California to the UK. So I had this car, I looked at it, and the deal we'd done was basically done on pictures alone. So I asked him, I didn't want to fly to California. It was just a gamble, this car. I got the guy to lay out all of these pictures on his driveway in California, all the bits that he had. So he had a rolling shell, which looked really good. It was all in primer. And his plan apparently was to respray this car Lamborghini purple or an orange. He'd taken out all the side straights on the doors, but it was a rolling shell. It had the engine inside, it had the gearbox. And so I got him to lay out on his driveway all the parts that were coming with this car as part of the deal. Looking at it, he had all the interior, he had all the side bits, he had engine bits. It looked probably a good 90% complete. I thought, well, it's worth a gamble. At the price we had agreed, it's got to be done. There was always a plan B. At the time, a Testarossa engine, a Testarossa gearbox were about £18,000 second hand. So I was getting this whole car for less money. We did the deal. I shipped it over to the UK, and about a month later, it turned up. It looked a lot worse than it did in pictures. Let's put it that way. They always do. But we had this car that turned up, and we had 2 massive wooden crates of parts, which I then unloaded and started putting this car back together. And lo and behold, within about a week, got most of it in place, and it fired up. We got this car actually running. The car had been off the road for about 25 years. And well, I did a few little things on it. All I had to actually change on this car to get it going were the fuel pumps. So I got aftermarket fuel pumps, about £30 each. Did a few little things, cleaned it out, and this car fired up. It didn't sound too good, but it actually worked. We managed to drive it out, get it down the street. It was still very, very rough. We had no windscreen on it. We had half the parts missing, but I actually managed to get this thing going. So the guy, when I'd sold it to him, I said, look, anyone else is going to buy this car is going to break it for bits. It's worth way, way more than what you're asking if I take it apart. A door, for example, on a Testarossa at the time, about £3,000. Front hood on it, another £2,000. Engine and gearbox, like I say, £18,000 each. So I said to him, look, I promise you, my passion is Ferraris. I didn't have the YouTube channel at this time, but I said, look, I'm the only mad person in the world that is going to take a gamble on this car, and I will try and get this car back on the road. Anyone else, like I say, is going to strip it. The car will end up in a scrap heap. So I stuck to my word. I sent him a video. I've got the car back on the road. And then I left it for a little while. Other things come about in life. So I left it for a couple of years. I then moved to a new house, and I was a little bit bored over the winter. Spent a couple of months putting this car back together. And it was a Testarossa. It was a 1987. So there's about three generations of Testarossa in the first form of Testarossa. So you got the original ones which have got a high mirror, center lock hubs called a monospecco. Mine is an 87, which happens to be my favorite. It's got the center lock hubs, two mirrors, and well, it's not quite the normal one, my one. Anyway, I spent these 2 months creating this car, getting it back on the road, and it kind of seemed to evolve naturally itself. It had, like I say, this primer body, and the parts that came in these 2 crates, probably about 90% of parts, but most of them were red, as majority of Testarossas out there were back in the 80s and 90s. So I started putting these red bits on the car, the side strakes, the mirrors, the engine humps and things like that. And I looked at it, I stood back and thought, yeah, it looks actually really cool like this in this primer, very rough body, red bits. Now, when the guy had cut the roof off at some point, or whoever had cut it off the car, they'd very, very poorly created this engine lid at the back. Very horrible, horrible welding on it, but it all seemed to gel together really well. We spent about 2, maybe 3 months putting this car together. We got it on the road. And during that time, I thought, I wonder if anybody else would actually enjoy seeing this build. So I wrote to a number of magazines that I've read over the years, all the car magazines, and a couple of websites. Everybody wanted the story. They all wanted to know about this car. So the car featured in several magazines. I had all the journalists coming out, taking pictures, really good fun. But one of them that came back to me was the Drive channel. And they sent a chap called Matt Farah over from the US to little UK, to my little 2-car garage. And we did a one-take story on the car, which is a 15-minute, no preparation, cameras rolling, whatever happens in 15 minutes is what goes on that video. Very funny. There was a few elements in it where we hadn't planned it. I literally just finished the car. I still was playing around with the ride height on the suspension. We went down this back road, massive dips in it, and I was literally at the point where we were talking about the suspension. We hit these dips and it all bottoms out, and it's just a hilarious moment. Anyway, I came off that and I thought, you know what? That was so easy. It was 15 minutes. How hard can this YouTube lark be? So I decided to become a YouTuber. I set up the camera, I was tinkering with these cars. I was fortunate I had a few Ferraris at the time. So I thought, I'll give back a little bit and I'll do some maintenance and put it on the YouTube channel. And so basically, the Rattarossa became my my YouTube channel. That's how my whole YouTube. So this car that I took a massive gamble on, subsequently, is my way of living now. So really, really interesting car. The few things that I've done to it, so I left it as it was. We put a sports exhaust on the car, which absolutely, the Testarossa from factory sounds very, very lame. There is no kind of spark to it or anything like that. You can unleash that by simply putting a sports exhaust on the car, and it then sounds phenomenal. So the car is what it is. The question everybody always asks me about the car is, there's always 2 questions. When are you going to finish it? When are you going to paint it? I've always said I'm never going to do either of them. I love it as it is. The car really has become the marketing for my channel. If I turn up anywhere, I can go to any show. You could have a pristine concourse winning Testarossa. If you park my Rattarossa next to it, you can guarantee that everybody is going to be stood around that car in a crowd. I actually went to the final race of a Silverstone for the Ferrari Challenge a couple of years ago. with another YouTuber. We were hosted by Ferrari UK, the PR guy for Ferrari UK. We all park up outside the paddocks at Silverstone. There's about 200 Ferraris and there's 6 press cars. So we're there. I'm talking to the head of UK PR. And he said, "Oh, your friend tells me you've got a few Ferraris." I said, "Yeah, yeah. You know, passion is always Ferraris. My YouTube channel is all about Ferraris." He goes, "Oh, what did you turn up today?" And then I had my Rata Rossa t-shirt on with a picture of the car. So I opened it. I said, "Ah, I know all about that car. I can't believe you have turned up in that. Yesterday we turned away the electric Ferrari 308 because it's just not with the Ferrari ethos." And he goes, "You really did turn up in that?" "Yeah, yeah, I turned up in that." "Come on then, let's go and have a look." So we walk outside, and embarrassingly, we got these 200 customer cars out there, the 6 press cars, and the whole group of people was around my car outside. So he had a look at it, and he saw the good side of it. When we built the car, what I've done with it is I said, and I explained it to him, I've kept it as original as possible. So the roof was cut off the car. All of the leather lining that was on the roof, we have actually reused on the car. So the back panel, where it's now a spider, that's all covered in the original material. Nut and bolt, everything else is all original Testarossa, bar the exhaust system. So it's good. The story behind it, by the way, I asked the guy who I was buying it from in California how it became like that. I don't know how genuine this is, but obviously at some point I think the car must have been in a crash. But he said that the car was used for molds, to create the molds for the Fiero kit cars. And then they thought it would be a great idea to have a convertible version of it. So they chopped the roof off of this car. How true that is, I don't know. But yeah, it's a good story. But apparently Ferrari then made them cut up the molds for these kit cars that they created from my Rata Rossa. So as well as Miami Vice in the 80s, I grew up in the arcades playing one game for hours and hours and hours, and that was Outrun. Now, actually, Ferrari only ever made this one-of-one Ferrari Testarossa Spider. That was in silver. So the Outrun game, having a red Testarossa Spider, the guy and the blonde girl in it, driving around. Well, that was my ultimate. So I'm a bit more fair. My girlfriend's dark. So end of all my videos is this the skit with the Outrun kind of image at the back. That's how all my videos close off, with me and my lovely lady in the back blowing the kiss at the as it happened at the end of Outrun. Anyway, that was my ultimate 80s game, and that is one of the reasons why I built the Rata Rossa.
Premier Financial Services makes it easier and more affordable than you could possibly imagine to own your dream car. Their Simple Lease is one of the most powerful tools in the world of exotic car financing. You get all the benefits like the tax savings and the low payments of a lease, with all the additional benefits that you normally find in a traditional finance arrangement. You can build up equity, you can pay it off early, you can trade in and out of cars, because you get a very clear and easy to understand amortization table to understand what your payoff will be any month throughout your term. And all the while, the amazing team from Premier Financial Services will be right there to help you along the way. They've been supporters of the VinWiki channel now for 5 years in a row, so we can't thank them enough for that, but mostly we're thankful for the fact that they can help you make it easier than ever to own your dream car. Check them out now.